from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do us part.
The long-awaited day was finally here. I could not help it, but let a tear form at the corner of my eye. It wasn't out of anger, but out of love, for the most beautiful person I'd ever seen was standing right before me. I had already said my vows, and now it was her turn. I meant every single word I'd spoken, and I knew she did the same. Unlike me, her tears rolled down her face, out of joy. I was not supposed to stretch my hand and to wipe them before the priest had pronounced us husband and wife. We were told to turn and face the priest, which we did while holding hands. Since you have consented together in holy matrimony and have declared your vows before God and these witnesses, and have given and received rings as a symbol of your commitment, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss the bride, the priest said. We turned slowly and stared at each other. I almost melted with joy. I smiled at my newly wedded wife, and she did the same. From the look on her face, it seemed that this was what she had been waiting for all the time that we had dated. I took a step toward her, and she did the same. I could not help it but smile. One of my best friends had seen how tense I was and said that he was more than willing to kiss the bride on my behalf if I was too afraid to do it. But no, I had to show him how it was done. It wasn't a big ceremony. I had only invited the people who mattered the most in my life. Besides, it was during a pandemic and a large gathering was not allowed. I could not believe it. An hour ago, I walked in as a bachelor, and now I was walking out of the hall as a married man, and more so, the head of a family. After the reception and the photo session, we were dropped off at the airport and flew out for our honeymoon, which lasted 3 weeks. When we came back, the hype was over and we had to start a family. I will admit it, this was a start of something I wasn't sure I was ready for, even though I was more than certain I had the best person by my side. There were things I had to adjust, especially my communication style and my sense of individual freedom. My wife preferred open communication, while I avoided confrontation at all cost. I was used to staying alone most of the time, only to realize that it was no longer my time, but our time, if I wanted the marriage to last. What did you do? She asked one evening after coming home from work. I didn't want to talk about it. I walked to the kitchen, took a drink, and went to the guest bedroom. We had quarreled the night before, and I had called my mom to ask what I was supposed to do. Something I can now say was not a good idea. We spent 2 days without saying a single word to each other. I could see my wife was hurting, but I could not help it. That is not to say that my undying love for her had even diminished in the slightest. Even though we slept in different rooms, I walked into her bedroom just to check if she was okay. "For how long is this going to last?" she asked. "I'm sorry," I said. I don't know why it was too hard for me to just say those two words. It was true, she was the one who had wronged me, but I still felt the guilty of holding it against her for so long. Can we talk about it right now? She asked. I have to go to work. Let's talk about it when I come back in the evening, I replied as I turned to leave the room. What if I don't make it to the evening? It's a long day, and what if? I had to stop her at that moment. I saw where the conversation was heading. I immediately called my boss and asked for permission to skip work that day. I didn't give a reason. I just said that it was something that was pressing. My wife looked at me in awe. It was as though she wasn't expecting me to handle things that way. I walked toward her, took her hand, and walked to the living room and lay on the couch. For a moment, no one said a word. It was the first time I felt the warmth of our relationship in several weeks. I almost slept until she spoke. She walked to the kitchen, prepared breakfast, and set the table. I joined her in the dining room and we enjoyed the meal together. This was the first time I had ever said thank you for the food she had prepared. She just smiled, stood up, kissed me on the forehead, and left the room to do some laundry. It was a day off. I recalled how I'd looked forward to such moment, yet it seemed that I was doing exactly the opposite of what I dreamt of. I looked forward to having fun with my wife, helping her around in the house, and even raising our children together. I thought it was time I manned up and started helping. I took the utensils to the kitchen and cleaned them. As I wiped the table, I could hear the laundry machine running. Then it switched off. I heard a thud and assumed something had fallen. I expected her to handle it. But after a while, the silence in the laundry room became unsettling. I walked over and found my wife lying on the floor, and there was blood. I rushed over and turned her. For a moment, I thought she had decided to end her life. But why could she do that? Had we solved our issues? Those were the questions which were running in my mind. I tried calling her name but got no response. I called her father, who lived nearby, and he came over. Together we rushed her to the hospital. She was taken to the emergency room. I explained to my father-in-law what had happened. He was frightened, but he tried not to show it. I, on the other hand, could not hide it. Minutes later, my mother walked in. The doctors kept walking in and out of the room. I tried as much as I could to inquire about her condition, but no one responded. My mother and father-in-law sat on the bench without saying a word. At last, my mother could not take it anymore. She stormed towards the room. It's either you tell us what is going on, or I'll find out myself, she shouted at one of the doctors. All I could see was the doctor's mouth moving. I could not tell what he said to her. Instantly, my mom calmed down. Her expression changed. She walked back to us. She's fine, she said. But something in her eyes told me that there was more. She asked my father-in-law to speak with her for a moment, and they walked away, leaving me alone. Then one of the doctors came and told me that it was okay to see my wife. She was lying on the bed, facing the door. She must have seen the terror on my face. I am okay now, she said, stretching out her hand towards me. I rushed to her and took it. I sat next to her. What did the doctor say? I asked. You are going to be a father, she replied. Wait, did I hear that right? Or were my ears playing tricks on me? I don't understand, I said. Those were the best words I could come up with. I'm pregnant, she said plainly. I didn't know the best way to respond. All I could remember was lying on her chest and holding her tightly. "Thank you," I said. "Thank us," she whispered back. I tried as much as I could to find the balance in everything. I can't count the number of times I stayed awake just staring at my mother-to-be of my first child. She insisted that we go for a gender reveal, which I objected. I wanted it to be a surprise. We didn't fight over it. I found myself going an extra mile to do the things which were normally hers to do, to the point that she eventually got frustrated, and she told me. I held myself back and did only what we had agreed upon, but as the days went by, I found myself doing almost everything in the house. She could not say no. It was clear I had to step up. A week before the due date, my father-in-law sent a younger sister to come and stay with us. Abigail. Abigail was the name I chose for our firstborn daughter. The name means the daughter who brings joy to her father, and that's exactly what she was and still is. 6 months later, I noticed my wife was not as joyous as she used to be. I found it hard to ask what was wrong. A week or so later, I decided to take her out on a date. "I don't think I can go," she said one night after I brought it up. I had everything sorted, and my sister-in-law was more than willing to take care of the baby while we were away. She eventually agreed, though half-heartedly. I was more than happy. I had made reservations at one of the most expensive hotels I could afford. We were supposed to spend the night there and return home the following day. We arrived at the hotel right on time, but there was still something off. My wife seemed to be hiding something from me. I didn't know the right words to use. I told her I was going to the restroom and left the table. When I returned, to my surprise, our table was surrounded by 3 men, and one of them had the audacity to take my seat. I walked slowly towards them, thinking that maybe they were her colleague. I stood beside them, but she seemed unsettled. "How much for a night?" one of the men asked. "Am I hearing this right? Do they think that my wife is a prostitute or something?" "Gentlemen, I think it's time for you to leave," I said politely. "Or, what are you going to do?" the man in my seat asked. "Let's just leave," my wife suggested as she stood. "No, it's our night, and there is no way we are going to leave. They will have to leave," I replied. I wasn't sure what the outcome of my decision would be, but I was ready for anything. "What happens if we don't leave?" one of them asked. "Then we have a bigger problem," I replied. "Which is, I hope your medical cover has you sorted," I replied. There was no need to waste more words. I did what any man would do in such a situation. After about a minute, they were all lying on the floor, groaning in pain. Security came and removed them from the hotel. "How come you didn't tell me about that?" my wife asked. It was hard for me to tell whether she was disappointed or proud. She took my hand and led the way to the room where we were to spend the night. Silence filled the room. "You need to take off your shirt. I need to wash it," she said. I could not face her. That had been one thing I had kept from her. My father had told me that it was a skill I needed to learn to keep my family safe when the time came. "I'm sorry, I didn't handle it properly. I'm actually surprised. That was super cool. Beating 3 grown men under 1 minute? I love it," she said. She then started acting how I had handled the men. All I could do was smile. I thought she was disappointed, but it turned out to be the opposite. In that joyful moment, I knew it was the perfect time. I stood up, walked over to her, and held her hand. I looked at the ring and remembered our wedding day. She was still as beautiful as she was the very first day. She hugged me, and I could tell she held me a little tighter than ever before. What's disturbing you? I have noticed something. I can tell. I'm pregnant. Again. She broke the news. She then rested her head on my chest. I gently lifted her chin so she could face me. That's the greatest news I've heard in a while. I love you, I said. That was probably not the response she was expecting. You are not mad at me? She asked. She still could not believe my response. You didn't do it alone. We did it together, I said. She looked relieved, and it showed. 7.5 months later, I was standing by the window, facing out. My wife was laying on the hospital bed behind me. She had to be on life support because she could not breathe on her own. I never saw that coming. She had been diagnosed with AML. The doctors said that they were doing all they could to save both lives. One evening, she was awake. She signaled me to get her a paper and a pen, which I did. She wrote, asking me if it would be okay to find out the gender of the child we were expecting. I always disliked that idea, but because of the love I had for her and the pain she was enduring, I agreed. The results came in. It was a baby boy. The hospital became my home. There was no way I was going to leave her side. Even when I stepped out, I always left my mother to watch over her. You need to go home and rest, my mother said to me. Wherever she is, that is my home, I replied. Nothing anyone could say that would change my mind. 2 weeks later, making it 8 months alone, she was finally able to talk again. She was off the life support because she could now breathe on her own. I was there, cherishing every moment. I would have taken her on dates if the doctors had allowed, but they insisted. There was no way that would be possible. Abigail was brought in from time to time to visit her mother. She wasn't sure who her mother was. She kept calling her auntie. She thought my sister-in-law was actually her mother. This is your mom, I kept correcting her. Please, let her call me aunt. It's cute and I love it, my wife insisted. One evening, all the family members came to visit as we had planned. My father could not stay in the room, that was clear, so he asked me to step outside and have a word with him. We left the rest chatting in the room. We walked to the cafeteria outside the hospital premises and he ordered a drink, black coffee, as he always preferred. It was a father-son moment. He was, and still is, the greatest man I've ever known. He taught me not just through his words, but through his actions. I will admit it, he said. I don't think I've ever loved your mom the way I see you love my daughter-in-law. You are the real definition of what a husband should be. I saw where the conversation was heading. No, Dad, let's not talk about that. In fact, I am who I am today because of you. Everything I am doing, it's exactly what you would have done. I know it deep in my heart, I interrupted. We talked for a while longer and eventually I said we should head back to the room. When we returned, everyone was preparing to leave except my mother, who seemed to be enjoying some special time with her daughter-in-law. As we walked in, the rest walked out, my mother included. It felt like something had all been coordinated. My father closed the door and approached us. My wife might have had an idea of what was happening, but I had no clue. He took an envelope from his jacket and handed it to my wife. "Thank you," she said, then handed it to me. "Just open it," I said. Inside was a key to my dream car. I had been saving up for it, and it would have taken me a long time to afford it. Yet here it was. I didn't even want to ask who bought it. All I could say was, "Thank you." How I wish I could hug my dad, but it never felt appropriate. I simply stood and shook his hand. "Thank you," I repeated. With that, my father spoke a few more words and left the room, leaving us alone. All my wife could do was smile as she stared at me. Through the smile, I could see the pain that she was enduring. "I want us to talk about something," she began. From her tone, I knew it was not going to be an easy conversation. I had known her for a long time, and I could recognize the look she gave. "I'm listening," was all I could say. It took her a moment to find the words. She then took my hand and placed it on her chest. "I need you to look at me," she requested. I couldn't. She gently lifted my chin until my eyes met hers. "This is one of the most difficult conversations we are ever going to have, but we need to have it now while we still have some time. I know you love me and the girl and the boy who is yet to come. But we must ask ourselves a question. What if I don't walk out of this place the same way that I came in? What will you do? You need to think about that," she said. There were no words I could say in that moment. I had considered that possibility, but I didn't want to entertain it. I wanted to ask, what if you are miraculously healed and walked out of this place even stronger? But I kept quiet. I wanted her to say all that she had in mind before I could respond. "In case I don't make it," she continued, "I want you to know that you are free to find another woman to help you take care of the children. I am more than blessed to have a loving, caring, hardworking, courageous, and loyal man like you. And please, tell our children how much I wanted to." I don't know what she said next. I was shaking uncontrollably, tears streaming down my face. The thought that her death was one of the possible outcomes was overwhelming. 2 days later, after the conversation, she asked me to get her ice cream that she loved the most. The doctor was in the room, so I felt it was safe to leave briefly. As I walked down the corridor, heading back with the ice cream in my hand, I saw the doctors rushing in and out of our room. I dropped the ice cream and ran. I could not enter. I could not see what was going on in the room either. I called my parents, who alerted my father-in-law, and they all came. An hour passed. It felt like eternity. Then one of the senior doctors came out, his mask still on. We stood, waiting for him to speak. It was a hard situation. 2 lives were at stake. We could either save both or lose both, or save one and lose the other. We could not save both. We lost the mother, but saved the baby boy, the doctor said, then walked back to the room. My heart has never been so torn, but I had to, and still have to be strong for my children. The host turned to me. "What can you tell the men out there who are going through the same thing that you are going through?" I think people don't have the right to tell others how long they should grieve. For some it might take months, for others years, and for some it might even take forever, I replied. The host leaned forward. "I'll ask this respectively. Do you see yourself remarrying?" Well, I think that's when the vows echo.